Hello my friends, HM here. I make videos about topics that are important for whether our future will be better or worse. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some news that broke out an hour ago about huge progress around the north and south of Bakhmut that Ukraine has made. And there's also another area I'll talk about where they had made some progress. And then there's a big explosion in occupied territory of Ukraine in a city there. I'll show you that movie because it's a big explosion and there's no blood in it. It's from far away, so shouldn't give you any trauma. And then I have more crazy news from the Wagner group led by Prigozhin. It's truly crazy news. But let's get to it. But let's start here. We have a map here of Ukraine, and then up here we have Russia, and down here we have Turkey, and then we have Poland and so forth, so you know where we are on this map. So let's zoom in. All the red stuff here is Ukraine occupied by Russia. And now today's main news is that we've got some confirmation right now here that Bakhmut saw some major gains. We can see that if we take this date here where we can move back and forth. Look at this. This area here, take a look at that, and also up here. When we go a day back, then it would look like this, and now it looks like this. And we can also go in here and measure it from here to around here. It's about 2 kilometers, 1.85 kilometers. And then let's just check it again. Here and here. And the same up here. And down inside here we have Bakhmut city. So the flanks for Bakhmut is basically being eroded all the time by Ukraine. They're moving forward and hopefully they'll surround the city and cut it off so the Russians will have no alternative but to leave. That'll be a big defeat if they can do that, because it took Russia almost 8 months and it costed them like 40,000 dead Russians and a lot more wounded just to take this insignificant city of 70,000 people. So if Ukraine can take it back, it'll just be a huge defeat for Russia. So I thought that was interesting. But we should also understand that Ukraine has been fighting there ever since the Wagner forces left this city. They were the one who took it from Ukraine. But now Wagner forces, as we all know, they have left. They're no longer part of the Ukraine war. They've given up their weapons to the Russian army, and some have joined the Russian army, but most of them are presumably now moving to Belarus in a new camp there, and Wagner will then do what they always do. They are a mercenary group and they quell rebellions for dictatorships all around the world, or they are paid by rebellions to take over a country and then they move in and help them with it. So they're kind of in that business, and now they can do it from Belarus instead of being part of this war here down in Ukraine. But I have more news about Wagner. This was not the insane news about Wagner that I just mentioned. So let's move on. So the second piece of news is up here. I have from this Anton Gerashenko Twitter account. He says here that Ukraine defenders advanced 2 kilometers deep into Russian defense on Tavria direction. And then they have this map down here. It's also from this deep state map that I'm using. So let's get back to this deep state. That was Bakhmut. So let's go down here and see where it is. It's down here. And I also got confirmation from other sources that there are fighting down here in Robotyne. So it's this place here where Ukraine apparently have moved forward. And if we measure it, here's the front line, and then we go down here to Robotyne. Well, that's 2 kilometers. So it appears that Ukraine has been making further progress down here 2 kilometers. But it's not yet updated on this map here. This map here, it's called Deep State Map. It's maintained by the Ukraine Armed Forces, and it's always behind what actually happens because they don't want to give Russia any good ideas exactly what is happening on the battlefield. But let's move on to more news. I also promised an explosion from a big city, so let's go to that. Here we got it. It's a Twitter account. Here it is. I don't have any sound on it. Let me see if I can blow it up so you can actually see it. Here we go. That was a big boom. And then, okay, here we can see it. It's a big explosion. And I'll show you on a map in a minute where it is. And I'll just move it forward here. It looks almost apocalyptic. Kind of beautiful. Almost like it's AI generated. But make no mistakes, there are people who probably die in this explosion, so it is war, it is what it is. Adult people killing each other, it's not fun. But here it is. I'll show you where it is. It's this Makeevka. So let's go back to Deep State map here, and I'll show you where that is. Here it is. This city here. So whereas Bakhmut is up here, and Makeevka is down here. So it's Russian controlled and has been Russian controlled since 2014. They've took this part of Ukraine at that time and kept it ever since. And they've been fighting along this front line since 2014, but not very intensely. It's only here in 2022 that the war really exploded with this full-scale invasion from Russia. But let's get to some more news here. The next thing I wanted to show is this video here of some Russian tanks being transported inside of Russia towards Ukrainian front. These are very, very old tanks. I believe they're from Second World War. T-54 and T-55 tanks. And you can see how small they are. The tanks were much smaller in the old times. And they have very little armor. They could probably be penetrated by a armor-piercing 30mm machine gun that I believe is fitted on the Bradley fighting vehicles. And any anti-tank weapon, even the smallest one, can destroy this tank. So I wouldn't like to sit in it on a battlefield because you will die pretty fast. But that shows just how desperate Russia is for getting tanks now to Ukraine, that they have to take this tanks up from old stocks and move it to Ukraine. And now to the crazy news from Wagner. It is truly crazy. Again, I'm back to this Anton Gerashenko Twitter account. He says here, Prigozhin, this is this guy down here, the head of the Wagner mercenary group. Prigozhin received back the money found during searches in his offices in St. Petersburg. They found gold bars and millions of rubles and also fake passports for all of the top Wagner people. And yeah, a lot of stuff. And now he gets it all back. And the most crazy thing is that Prigozhin travels freely around in Russia. It says here, the Russian newspaper Fontanka reports that the law enforcers initially had no intention of returning the money they found, 10 billion rubles, or not million, that's $111 million, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and 5 bars of gold. However, according to the source, a force majeure circumstance intervened. Somebody from high up intervened and said that he should have his money back. According to preliminary reports, Prigozhin was in Moscow that weekend attending some meetings. Now that's insane news. And I can only explain it with one thing that actually makes it all click and makes it rational. Because this coup attempt he did, where he was like 200 kilometers from Moscow and he took one city almost without resistance and was cheered by people in the streets. He could have taken power in Russia and then he just stopped suddenly and make a deal and go to Belarus. It doesn't make any sense. But now, since he's traveling around in Moscow and get his money back from St. Petersburg and so forth, I think what really has happened here is that Putin and Prigozhin, they are actually friends and have always been friends, and they are still friends. And they made a plan to, you could say, rat out all the traitors of Putin. They needed to know who they were, and therefore they came up with this idea. I start criticizing how this war is conducting, and then I start to appear like I'm against it and I want complete change. And then I make this coup and I call for everybody to join me. Let me find a Telegram message here from Prigozhin that support my theory that this is something Putin and Prigozhin planned. Most of the military support us wholeheartedly. Messages arrive. Thanks, Guy. Finally, there'll be justice in the army. Finally, you'll make them give us ammunition and they'll stop using us as cannon fodder. So apparently, people are mailing him that they support him. That's exactly what you'd like to know who they are. Those who would join a coup if there was a coup. And now I think they are just getting murdered and routed out and tortured to reveal who else are illoyal to Putin and doesn't support him 100%. So that's what I think happened. This was a plan between Putin and Prigozhin, and that's why he can get his money back and while they're still good friends because it was going according to plan. And of course, you could say, no, it can't be. They shot down 6 helicopters and 1 airplane and people died. Yeah, but that's still small losses. If you can root out a lot of potential traitors in your system, that's a small price to pay. And it's not something that will change the war at all. It's just a few pieces of equipment that's lost, and they have gotten a lot of traders rooted out here. And so I think that's what happened. And I have one more piece here. There are some generals that are missing. 2 top generals here are missing. And that's General Gerasimov. That would be the chief of staff of the armed forces of Russia. He hasn't been seen ever since this coup started. So maybe he was one of the guys who reached out to Prigozhin to say, well, I support this coup, let's get it over with. And now he is the one who's missing. And then this other guy, he's filmed down here, the bald guy here like me, he's called General Armageddon. He has another name. Absent from view 2 is General Sergei Surovikin or something. I just know him by the name General Armageddon. He's also absent ever since this coup. So maybe this was the 2 biggest fish, so to see, that Putin and Prigozhin got from staging this coup. That was a fake coup. That's what I believe, and that's kind of the final news I have for you today. But I wish you a fulfilling life in freedom and democracy, and see you next time. Goodbye.